So, if you're nice and comfy, ready for a story, let's begin. Freakout Island. It's by Justin Christopher. I met Justin many, many years ago on radio, and he's an amazingly talented young man, has a family of his own, and he began writing books when he went cross-eyed from watching too much television. So he's done all kinds of incredible things. So this is his book, and I believe we started it last lockdown, that very first lockdown. But I think we should have it again because it is very good. Local author, really nice guy, and it's a jolly good story. So are you nice and comfy? Ready for a story? Well, let's begin. No pictures in this other than on the cover, so you'll just have to lie back, close your eyes, and imagine the pictures, okay? Chapter 1. For the umpteenth time that week, Leo Wriggly blew a bubble so big it covered his face like a bright pink spider's web. Eck! No, not again. The gooey gum stuck like glue, and each time he tried to pull a piece off, he felt as if his mop of hair might come with it. Leo desperately needed help, but he couldn't ask his mum and dad. Not after having been told 10 million times to stop eating so much gum. Of course, this wasn't the worst gum incident ever. Once he'd eaten 3 packets in one go and had produced a bubble so brilliant that when it popped, it covered his entire head. Leo celebrated because surely this was the biggest bubble ever blown, until minutes later, when he realised that gum and hair are not friends. His dad decided that the only way to get doubly bubbly strawberry favoured mess out was for Leo to get a #1 buzz cut at the barber's. OMG. Oh my gum. Afterwards, Leo Wriggly felt he might as well have been bald. Man, that had almost made him give up bubble gum for good. But today, as Leo looked in the mirror, examining the goo all over his face and hair, he suddenly had the most wonderful thought. He wasn't going to be in trouble after all, and it was thanks to the jar of peanut butter in his wardrobe. It was also thanks to his 2 best friends at school, Jono and Yang, because one day in English class, Ingrid Salzberger had told them that if you accidentally burst gum all over your body, you could cover it with peanut butter and it would come off. So that afternoon, Leo tried the suggestion, and it worked. It was a miracle. How utterly wonderful. No telling off. No gum in his hair. No trip to the barber's. Leo felt very thankful for having 2 such cool friends. Now Leo felt he could blow any bubble he liked. And he did. Leo Wriggly lived with his mum and dad in a tiny house in the northern town of Gumsbury. Despite its size, Leo's parents still liked to pack every square centimetre of the place with unimaginable amount of junk. It was always a major struggle to find the TV remote, and sometimes the TV itself was completely buried by clothes, boxes, and any number of useless items which should have stayed on the shelves of Poundland. A few days after his success with the peanut butter, Leo arrived home from school, poured himself a glass of milk, and found a free corner of the couch on which to sit. He was about to watch one of his many favourite movies starring Burt Lancaster. Yes, he knew the actor's real name was actually Burt Lancaster, but when Leo was a toddler, he'd accidentally called him Burp. So Burp he became. Leo and Dad often watched Burp movies together. Because Burp chewed doubly bubbly bubblegum when he was flying planes, Leo did the same thing. As Burp always saved the day while chewing gum, Leo thought this was a good enough reason to buy packets and packets of the stuff. Leo was all settled to watch his movie when his dad appeared right in front of him. He sat down cross-legged like a child. "Well?" Mr. Wriggly asked. "Well, what, Dad?" Leo replied. "Gonna ask me how my day was?" How was your day, Dad? Oh, thank you for asking, son. Today was a winner chicken dinner day. Your mum and I won 3 prizes. 3. Count 'em. 3. Wow, replied Leo. What were they today? Mr. Wrigley cleared his throat and sprang up into standing position. Some design software, a packet of chalk, and 20 cans of cow's tongue. We get them all tonight. What about you, son? What are you going to do this afternoon? Leo sat back in his seat. Well, thank you for asking, he giggled. I was going to watch Burt Lancaster and then maybe play Midnight Raider in my room. Yes, you're very good at that. I've seen the way you fly that plane on the game. Very good. When you become a pilot, you can spoil your old mum and dad and fly them around the world. It'll be your way of thanking us for all the hard work we've done. None of this made any sense to Leo, because for as long as he could remember, his mum and dad had never had an actual job. Instead, they were professional competition winners. PCWs. Every morning as he made breakfast and his school lunch, he watched his parents, still in their pajamas and slippers, staring at the computer screens. His dad drummed the table with his fingers and his mum furiously bit her nails. When the postman arrived, Mr. and Mrs. Wrigley sprinted down the driveway together. Once they reached the letterbox, they held each other's hands and performed a quick game of paper, scissors, rock to see who was allowed to open it. Having seen what was or wasn't in there, Mr. and Mrs. Wrigley could either trudge back up the driveway staring at the ground and sulking, or leap into the air like 2 overly excited dolphins shouting, "Winner, winner, chicken dinner!" It was nice to see them happy. It would be less nice to eat cow tongue for a fortnight. Leo started watching his movie, but soon had to pause it as his mum came in, sweating from having carried a large box, and sat down to open it. "All right, dear?" she asked. "Good day?" "Okay, I guess," replied Leo. "Oh, I forgot to tell you. Next Monday, it's Bring Your Child to Work Day." "Oh, goody," his dad replied. Leo felt as if he were about to burst out laughing, but then he realised his dad was serious. "But Dad," said Leo, holding in another giggle. "Mum, you can't. I mean, how could you?" "What?" his mum protested. "Don't dare say it. Don't you dare say it." "Well, I mean," Leo stammered, unable to hold his words in his mouth. "You don't really work, and Dad doesn't either. Do you?" "How rude," replied Mrs. Wrigley. "We're PCWs." "Oh, I know that," said Leo, "but it's not a real job. Not like a doctor or an accountant." Mr. Wrigley leapt off the carpet as if he'd been sitting on a hot stove. "I beg your pardon. Look at last year. We won a PlayStation 4, a giant jar of jelly beans, a salamander. Oh, he died, of course, but how was I to know a lizard needs water? What else? A flat-screen TV, a life-size Batman statue, 3 leaf blowers, and a year's supply of beef jerky." "Which you should stop eating. It gives you gas," said Mrs. Wrigley, prodding her husband in the belly. "Stinks out the bathroom, it does. Poo-wee." "And don't forget the pogo sticks," Mr. Wrigley continued, pointing to a long, thin box in the corner covered in dust. "And the giant pink chimpanzee," continued Mrs. Wrigley, "and the electric guitar." "Mum, it's a left-handed guitar," said Leo. "None of us are left-handed." "A guitar's a guitar, son." "Ooh, who's being a little party pooper?" Mr. Wrigley said, and gave Leo a horsebite on his thigh, causing him to squeal and fall to the floor. Meanwhile, Mrs. Wrigley walked towards the kitchen, flinging the tea towel over her shoulder. "Not a real job. Pfft. And take a bath, you've got gum in your hair." Hearing that, Leo decided he was better off out of sight, and he scarpered, but not to the bath. If Leo's parents were arguably a bit obsessive, so was he. He played Midnight Raider before school and after school, before breakfast and after breakfast, before dinner and after dinner. If he could have played it on the toilet, he would have. He even played it in his dreams. To him, sitting in the cockpit of an airplane, even if it wasn't a real one, was better than anything in the whole world. He loved to soar through the clouds, then land on an aircraft carrier in a thunderstorm or in the Mongolian desert. It made him feel like a real pilot being trained for a war, or an FBI agent who'd been sent on a top secret mission, or, best of all, had been instructed to rescue his hero, Burp Lancaster, from the Amazon jungle where he'd been chased by jaguars and snakes. It didn't matter that Leo played the game in a room so small it was barely big enough for a single bed and a desk. Every day Leo dreamt of flying for real, wearing an actual pilot's uniform with a real hat and a briefcase, and really truly heading for the south of France. Sometimes he was so engrossed in a flight that when his doubly bubbly became rubbery and tasteless, he had to swallow it. Otherwise he'd crash and die. Even worse, he'd lose his place on the Midnight Raider leaderboard. And there was a very real danger that that was going to happen now. Leo! It was his dad, and he did not sound happy. Leo? Not now, Dad, Leo replied, his heart racing at having reached level 9. The only other player he knew who'd reached level 9 was Killer Bee 007, and he was the boss. But now Leo was getting close to the best score ever. Ever. Leo! Not now, Dad, please. Yes, now. This gum on the toilet seat. I don't think your mum put it there. Come and clean it off now. Who puts bubble gum on a toilet seat? Suddenly, Leo lost all concentration. His hands shook, and his brain became a tumbling Jenga puzzle. His plane, which was attempting a perfect landing at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, was wobbling and diving out of control. Leo was sweating now and panicking. Just a few seconds before, he could have been the best pilot in the world, but not now. His plane crashed into the Eiffel Tower, bursting into a ball of flames. Leo punched his desk and let out an almighty sigh. He was exhausted. Killer Bee 007 was still world champion. Someone was stomping down the hallway, but when Leo's bedroom door was thrown open, he saw something that cheered him up instantly. In fact, he laughed so hard that snot came right out of his nose. His father was standing there holding a toilet seat. What is it about gum? Mr. Wrigley said. It's disgusting. I'm sorry, Dad. I was going to come and help you, but I was so close to getting my highest score ever, even higher than Killer Bee. Your gum eating is out of control, said Mr. Wrigley, pointing to the bright red blob stuck to the underside of the toilet seat, which, as Leo could see, was now broken. Leo's mum came up close behind her husband and peered around him at Leo. Don't you ever go swallowing it either, she said. Did you know that if you ever swallow bubblegum, it takes 7 years to digest? 7 years? That's more than a decade. That's what it says here. Even worse, if you keep swallowing it, you'll blow a bubble out of your butt. I saw it with my own Uncle Fred. Once he swallowed too much doubly bubbly and he blew a bubble out of his butt that was so huge that he ended up in hospital. He nearly drowned. Drowned? Did I say drowned? He nearly died. Well, either one would be bad, Dad said, and laughed at his own joke. Chewing too much gum will wear out your jaw, Mrs. Wrigley said. Leo nodded. You'll rot your teeth, said Mrs. Wrigley. Leo nodded again. It was stifling hot in this tiny room. Please, he said, it's just that bubblegum is so satisfying, and you can hang up posters with it. he added proudly, pointing to the many pictures of aeroplanes which covered his room from floor to ceiling. Mr. Wriggly did not seem convinced. "Okay, I'll try to stop eating so much gum," he said, and he spun round to face his computer. There was a message from Killer Bee 007. It said, "Better luck next time, loser." Leo made a face and prepared to launch a new flight. He reminded himself that overall, his life wasn't too bad. He had his 2 best friends from school, Jono and Yang, and another best friend, his little scruffy dog, Peace and Quiet. He had his own bedroom and Midnight Raider, and he had his own stash of doubly bubbly. But things were about to get very, very bad for poor Leo Wriggly, and it was through no fault of his own. In a matter of weeks, this fairly ordinary boy was about to be trapped in a nasty place by even nastier people. And as if it wasn't bad enough, some very strange things were about to happen to Leo's body. In particular, his butt. The next day, Leo had just arrived home from school and was sitting comfortably at his computer with some cheese and crackers when he heard someone calling from the lounge. It was his mum, and she sounded happy, very happy. "Leo," she called. "Dearest darling Leo, sunshine of my life. Could we possibly see you for a moment? Or, when you've finished your turn on Midnight Raider," his father added. "We don't want to interrupt your turn." A minute or so later, Leo stood at the door to the lounge and peeked around the corner. That was when he felt something was wrong. Very wrong. The lounge was too clean. Leo could actually see the floor, and the TV had absolutely nothing draped over it. But even stranger was the behaviour of Mr. and Mrs. Wriggly, who sat beside each other on the couch, as upright as meerkats, but smiling like the creepiest of clowns. "What's happened?" Leo asked quietly. "Are you breaking up?" "Ha! Of course not. In fact, quite the opposite," said his dad, and gently patted an empty spot on the couch. Leo crept towards the seat, watching his parents as if they were convicts about to escape. He folded his arms, deciding to stand instead of sit. "We've got some news," said his mum, rattling ice cubes around in her glass. "You're having another baby?" Leo blurted. "We're moving? You got a job? Oh, look at your imagination go." "No, dear, it's none of those things. We just wanted to tell you about our best ever winner chicken dinner." Mr. Wriggly cleared his throat, took a deep breath and placed his hand on Leo's knee. "We are going on a holiday," he said. "Wow," replied Leo. "A holiday? Where are we going?" "We are not going," said Mrs. Wriggly. "It'll be just your dad and me. And we didn't have any time to find you a babysitter, so we thought Aunt Margot." "Aunt Margot?" "Yes, Aunt Margot, the one who never sends me birthday cards and calls me Little Mr. Cleverclogs." "Yes, that was a compliment, Leo," said Mr. Wriggly. "No one's ever called me that." "Look," said Mrs. Wriggly, "it's only for 2 weeks and—" Leo shook his head so quickly that his mop of hair flashed around like tussocks of grass in the wind. "Why can't I come with you?" "Because we won a voucher, honey," Mrs. Wriggly replied, "and we worked very hard, and quite frankly, I think I deserve—" "What about Bring Your Child to Work Day?" "Leo, please," his mum continued. "We can't miss this holiday. You should see the castle we're staying in, and the food and everything is free. We're flying business class." Leo slumped onto the couch and buried his face into a cushion. A few seconds later, he heard the sweetest words from his dad. "We'll buy you Midnight Raider, version 2. Leo sprang up like a jackrabbit. "Really?" "Really," said Leo's parents at exactly the same time. "Midnight Raider 2, Leo repeated. But it's only just come out. You can't even buy it in the shops. But you can buy it at the airport. I know," Mr. Wriggly finished for him with a knowing wink. Leo's smile quickly turned into a frown. Dad, you did read the fine print. What fine print? The fine print on the competition you won. We learnt about it at school. Fine print is the tiny writing at the bottom of a form. Most people don't read it, but it's really important. Do you ever read the fine print, Dad? Or Mum? Mr. and Mrs. Wrigley laughed so hard that Leo felt as if the sofa they were sitting on was a tiny ship rocking about on rough sea. What is wrong with the education system these days? Mrs. Wrigley scoffed. Why don't they teach you how to win competitions instead? Dad, Leo persisted, please promise me you'll read the fine print. Yes, yes, of course, said his dad. Dad, do you really have to leave me with Aunt Margot? Leo, my son, Dad said, everything will be fine. And he held out his hand, but Leo hugged him instead. And that was chapter 1. Chapters 2 is still to come. And if you want to find Justin Christopher, the author, you can find him at Justin Christopher Author on Facebook or Justin Christopher Author on Instagram. So how about we have some more story soon. I'll be in touch and let you know when that is. And in the meantime, you have a wonderful day, wonderful evening, wonderful night. See you later. It's time to say goodbye.